some breaking news. If this is not great, it's because and the signal isn't exactly the best here as well. So no matter the Wi-Fi or whatever else it is, it's not very good. So hope you're all doing well today. As I said, I would jump back on if there's some news, some good news, I think for many people on here. So whatever you're doing, I hope you're having a great day. Feel free to get into the chat. I will say this: be respectful to the chat. Any comments that are deemed not great will be removed, just because I simply have to. Feel free to come on and banter, but as long as it's all respectful, then we don't really mind what goes on here. So I'm not a dictator of the chat, as people will hopefully back me up on that. I also don't do things for clickbait, so feel free to get into chat and let me know what you think. So as of this afternoon, there are many reports now on this. There are many different channels going live on this as well. There are lots of outlets now reporting on this. So Agume, Lucien Agoumé, seems to be a target. I wonder if Vaughan's will come out with this at some point with Romano, but right now, according to reports that are out there, so I'm just bringing this to you. Breaking news is that United are asking for this player for quite some time, and thinking about it, I don't do clickbait. This is out there now in the ether that United Sevilla want 30 million euros, that is, which is about 26 million pounds. They're probably going to want that up front, or at least over 2 instalments. Let me know what you think about that. Whether you think that this would be a good deal to do. I'm with the opinion that I think this would be a great deal to do. Centre midfielder, 6'2", I think, 23 years old. MMU, hey dude, I hope you are really well today. Second time today, so thank you for being on here, becoming a legend of the chat. I'd love to know your opinions, obviously, after the Homeland this morning, Lemens, Costa this morning. We're clearly trying to do stuff now. So for me, I think I'd rather Agume over Homeland. I think it's probably going to be priced out of the Homeland deal. I don't think we want to spend the money. So a lot of you are saying, I don't think that's necessarily the case as such, but I don't think we want to spend the money, right? So for me, if this Agume stuff starts to develop throughout the day, which I'm suspecting it will do, again, when you logically look at these deals and logically look at these players, Tulip plays, hi JB, Tulip plays one of the legends and the mods in the chat. When you look at Agume, I think he fits the profile that we definitely need. 30 million, Agume is a great alternative. Exactly, for 30 million euros, 26 million pounds. I mean, you've got to look at that. And obviously Sevilla clearly are looking, as Indiala, is it Sports, whatever they're called, an X now. They've been quoted quite a few times on different things, and they tend to be right on a lot of stuff. Now the problem, I'm starting to come out with this as well of other channels. Again, whenever I seem to do stuff or I'm out, I got something right there, some stuff, and then Agume, and for me it triggered a things from the chat. So I'm always thinking about this chat and the players that you sort of mentioned. I was looking at him this morning, 6'2", and this is one I go with the chat on this one. This is not a player that I necessarily have seen too much of, but this is a player that the chat, and we've spoken about, it's only because I don't really watch Spanish football that much, and definitely not Seville. I know Agume plays for Inter, I think, necessarily recognising the player. Now, Agume, 23, I think this is a sort of deal. Lucio Eduardo, how are you doing, sir? I think this is a sort of deal that Brighton would do. This is a sort of deal that I think Brentford, if it starts to grow, don't forget, give us a like, a favourite and subscribe. Even just a quick like would be fantastic. I think when you logically look at this deal, on what we do on here, we talk about stuff. Now, I'll give you your guys that your say. I'm not a dictator of the chat, and we can move things around. I do have a plan in mind as to when I talk about things, but you guys really do drive the chat on here. I'll always just say, try and be as respectful as we can to the people into the chat. So if you have just joined, it's coming out now. Reports are coming out of that. Lucien Agoumé is now on the agenda. And when I look at this, and I think again from a logical behind the things that I say, apologies if it's a bit shaky. It's because I'm away and I'm having to do what I can. So Agume for me, I think makes total sense, and I'll give you my opinion on that and tell you for why I think it makes sense, and feel free to give me your opinions on it as well. 6'2", powerful from what I've seen, drives with the ball, he's a profile that we like. I don't think he's an out defensive midfielder, but he's got that box to box quality. He's got that almost, I think you could convert him into a proper CDM. I think more of a defensive minded midfielder, 6'2", 23 years old. One of the key things for me is price, 30 million euros. Now, I think if you pay that up front, I think it's absolutely fine. But this strikes me as a fantastic deal to do. If you're looking 26 million, give him a 5-year deal, it would still be 28 years old. I think it makes complete sense. I think we lost out on I forget his name now, the Brazilian player, Rios, and we missed out on him. I genuinely believe, price-wise, I think it makes complete sense in terms of price. I think it makes complete sense in terms of price. I think it makes complete sense age as well. I think this is a sort of deal that Brighton do. This is a sort of deal that a Brentford would do. This is a sort of deal that these sorts of clubs definitely do. This is the sort of deal that they do. So I think for me, this has the hallmarks of a potential good deal. Definitely for the player, definitely for, I think wages wise, I don't know what the wages are at present. Yes, I just think this will be a good deal to do. 30 million, and if you sort of have just joined Agume, and this chat has been on about Agume for a long time, and this is why I always say clubs should come on to, I'm not necessarily saying here, they should do, because this chat is fantastic on here, is that if you come into into chat, and some of you before have said, what do we know about football? They've got scouts and whatever else. But fans watch football too. And this is the thing that, to get an idea of players, like I've learned so much from this chat already. There was a time many moons ago where I would analyse players. I used to play all sorts of football games, and you just have much more time to follow football, and you follow different leagues. And in recent years, I've not probably had enough time with kids and that stuff to analyse football as much as I used to. I do now, of course, I do more, which this has been fantastic for me. But yeah, this is a player that I'd give to the chat and say, look, guys, you called for this player, you wanted this player. Temishkin in the chat comes in, Chile plays, I think has said this before, as well. And these are the sorts of players that we need to get in. These are the sorts of players that we need to do. These are the sorts of players, I think it's worth taking a risk. Yes, you can argue that that's a lot of money, just to outlay. I don't think it is. So I think Agume for me, I think is fantastic. Then do we go for a keeper? Now, one of the things I did see about Onana or the keeper situation is that the only reason Onana hasn't played is because of a hamstring injury. I disagree with that. I think that he's being pushed out of the squad. I do. I really do think he is. I think he's being pushed out of the squad. I'm taking a little bit of a tour right now, simply because I'm on holiday, so I've got to move around. Just try and move this around. So at the moment, I'm on a little bit of a tour, as it was. I'm away, and the signal is not the best. So if you have just breaking news, Agoume to United is what's going around the media, and what I do is I don't do clickbait. I've always said this, I don't do clickbait. And it's important that from a logical perspective, if there are certain things where I don't think are quite right, I won't report them just because I just think it's a lot of nonsense. Whereas with stuff like this that is going around and doing the rounds, I think it's really important to come on and sort of report the news as much as I can. So I'd love you to give me your opinions on this one. Sorry if the sort of picture's a bit fuzzy or I'm a bit moving around, just because I just sort of have to do what I can. And as I say, I'll always come on and report the news. I'll report where I think is right. I don't do things for debate. So if you have just joined, get in the comments section, get in the chat. Let me know what you think about this deal. Let me know, Jesus, let me know if you think that this is a deal worth doing. I think it's very much as a deal worth doing. I'm going to have to shut these windows because it's windy here as well. I think this is a deal that I think is definitely worth pursuing. 20 to 26 million pounds, equivalent to 26 million pounds for a 23-year-old who's already played for Inter Milan, Sevilla. Now, you could probably argue, why didn't you make it at Inter? Why is Sevilla looking to sell him, so cheap? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, 26 million pounds, in my opinion, for a profile like that, potentially when Seville could make a load more money on it, is it what is wrong with this player? I've not seen enough of him, but I think for 26 million pounds, I think it's worth the risk. Anthony joined Galatasaray. I'll go. I hope so. I mean, I don't know if that's come out just yet. It will come out on some Sancho stuff, actually, that we spoke about this morning. We spoke about yesterday. I think we're going to be proved right on this one. I think I'm going to be proved right on this one. Some of the reports that are coming out on him, but I think we sort of all knew this anyway. But if you have just on breaking news, Agume, that report is now starting to come out, so that we are clearly looking at a midfielder. I think you guys are right in the chat and have been right. I think money-wise, I think we're looking to do things on the cheap. Are football people in charge? If we went for Agume, I'd believe that football people are in charge of this club. I think it's a very sensible deal to do. I think it's a good deal to do. Is he a believer? I don't think he is. I think he's one of these signings that it'd be cheaper than Ugarte, and Ugarte is this season is abjectly terrible. Don't know, what you think about that, but Ugarte for me has been awful. So you can almost take a punt on this kid because he's 23 years old. Even if he wasn't particularly great, and he was one of these players that you have as a backup player, 26 million, I think is a fantastic deal to do. So, we are. I don't. Humland, I think, is there or thereabouts as a thought process. I don't think we need Humlin this season. If we were to get him, I wouldn't complain. Agoume is good midfielder, but he doesn't prove in the Premier League tends to, and that's a good point. That is a good point, you know. But you could argue, you could say that Belieber wasn't a Premier League player, and Belieber came in. Now, obviously he's been there for a year, so what was he, 20 years old? I'm very good, Tentu, and I hope you're good, my friend. You know, these signings, like Belieber, like Agume could be that type of player that Brighton would sign him. You know, would they sign him? You know, these are players that's next to no money. You know, he's not Premier League proven. If we want Premier League proven this season, Belieber's 120 odd million. Walton's going to be north of 70 million. You know, these are we can't do that this season. We have spent 200 million pounds now. Cunha, Belieber, so Cunha and Mbeumo are good signings. I'm never going to argue. But did we need both of those signings? You know, did we need them both? Could we have not spent that money elsewhere? No, but that's what we've done. What about keepers? So the latest on the goalkeepers, Mosquito, JB, I'm very well, thank you, sir. Very well, not bad at all, and I hope you're also well as well. Lebawi, with the rate United defence played last game, we will be praising how good Onana is and how he turns around next season. Lebawi, you know, that's an opinion, my friend. I think the majority of us, including myself, if we had to stick with Onana and we've got no choice, then so be it. But he's not turning this around. You know, he's 29 years old. At 29 years old, you're pretty much set in stone. You know, 29 years old is still relatively young for a keeper, but he's not changing. Not at 29 years old. You can't teach basic skills. It's a bit like if you're a winger or a striker, and then somebody tries to change your position or tries to make you a better striker. So, for example, you know, it's like trying to say that Calvert-Lewin is going to be like Kane. It's just not going to happen. You know, they both play the same positions, but when you're that age and you kind of learn stuff, you're just not going to do it. I think Onana could have a better season. I'd love Onana to be good. It means it saves us money. It saves us a position. It saves us money. I agree with you, but I just don't see it myself. I just don't see it. But you might be proved right. He might come in. We might not get a keeper, and he might be right. So where are we on the keeper? I'll come back to the Sancho thing. So keeper-wise, Onana still has an injury. Apparently, he's only played 3 games. He's not been in the squad. Amarin is trying to send a message to Onana. You know, I don't think he might get back into this team, but I do think we are looking at a keeper. Costa, as we reported this morning, 30 million euros. So potentially you're looking at Agume, 26 million, Costa, 26 million. So for 52 million pounds, you could be getting 2 really good players as opposed to 120 on Belieber. Now, I know Belieber's the dream. I know Belieber would be great. But if we can do these 2 players and squad players, so be it. You know, I think you'll make a difference. I think we I agree, we need to sign a keeper. I do think we need to, worst case scenario, you know, Onana's there, and if we don't, and he makes a mistake, and he makes mistakes that cost us games, so be it. You know, that's on the club. But when there's the likes of Lemens out there, now Costa can be done for 26 million, I think we'd be stupid not to. Jadon Sancho, as we said yesterday, I think I summed it up yesterday quite well. Sancho is pretending to want to go. Sancho is not going because he wants a payoff. Logically, think about this. If you're Jadon Sancho and you set on your contract, you're going to get paid your full wages for the next year. You look at Casemiro. Casemiro's he's just sitting on his contract, right? He knows he'd get paid 350k a week. Next year, even if someone's willing to give him £6 or £7 million next season and maybe a shorter wage, Sancho's going to get the same. So someone's going to pay Sancho 10 to 15 million next season to get him on a free, signing on bonus and wages. Sancho wants that. Sancho's going nowhere. There are deals from Besiktas. There was an offer from Chelsea. There's one from Roma. There's one from Juventus. Him and his team are playing a very, very smart game. They're putting it out there that they want to go, and then they're not going. Sancho ain't going anywhere. He's not in the World Cup squad. He's not going to. He knows he's not going to. He's got no interest. He'd rather sit on his arse. He'd rather sit on his butt and do nothing. He'd rather sit on his butt for a year, hold tight, get paid, because his career is not going to get impacted. He's not interested in internationals. He's not interested in furthering his career. All he wants to do is basically play football, earn some money, and then retire. And that's what he's about. So I'd love to be proved wrong on this, but for me, Sancho, I think now stays, or he goes on loan. He's not going to go in a permanent move unless we pay him off. I think he wants probably his wages paying off and like an exit fee. So I think we need to look at it in terms of what's going to be the most beneficial cost to us. Do we pay him off to go, or do we just pay him his wage and leave him go for next season? If that's his stance, then personally I would let him rot. I would, and I've been saying this a lot about his players, but I'd let him just rot, impact his career. He'll be 27. See you later, mate. That's what I'd do. Alabama says, I'm just saying, better defence makes keeper look better. I sort of agree with that, and I don't. We had a good defence last season. You can never make. I know what you're saying. I do know what you're saying, but goalkeepers, because of their position, no matter how good the rest of the team is, I actually think is the opposite. I think when you've got a good defence, it makes the keeper look bad. So whatever mistake they make, I actually think it makes the keeper look worse. Because if you think about it, if your only mistakes are coming from your goalkeeper and your defence is playing well, your midfield is okay, your strikers are doing well, if everyone in the team is singing to the same hymn sheet and they're all looking good, that one person who doesn't play well stands out. So I actually think it'll be the opposite. I think a good defence will make him look even worse and will make people so just exacerbate his exit. And that's where I think that Amrin is trying to do. So Mosquito says, Heaven Delit Euro is our best free. I don't disagree. Jamie Vargas said, I love your show all the way from Texas. Hope you're enjoying your holiday. Any news on Lamens? Jamie Vargas, legend. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, my friend. Legend of the chat now, Jamie. I recognise your name, my friend. I don't know with Lamens. I don't know what it is. So the latest news on the goalkeeper is Costa, really. So thinking at Costa, I think I've said this in the past, that Costa maybe costing 40 to 50. I think 50 million euros. Apparently the quoted price is 30 million euros. Now, I think that would be a great deal if that's the price. In fact, I think Galatasaray or Besiktas or somebody along those lines are going to offer 20 million euros. So even if you look at 30 million euros at that price, you'll just go and get that deal done. So there is movement. Amrin is pushing for these moves. I think if we, Alicia says, hello, welcome to the chat, my friend. Right now, a goalkeeper and a centre midfielder. So if you have just joined, if you don't know, some breaking news, and I've got to give this one up to the chat. I think the chat have been amazing on this for the last couple of weeks, to be honest with you. Agoume, Lucien Agoumé, plays for Sevilla, 6'2", midfielder. You could argue a powerful defensive midfielder. I think not an ultra defensive midfielder, but of that Belieber mould, that Belieber type of player. And £26 million, 30 million euros from Seville. I think that's a good deal. I think he's better than Ugarte, which I think we got absolutely robbed on that. I think PSG, can't believe we got done on that. Let them basically paid for them to have Silva, and we got Ugarte. Ugarte for me right now is, I think Ugarte for me right now is maybe not quite there, but he's in that Onana camp for me. Ugarte, I saw some good stuff from him, but consistently now he's not started to play well. The fact he can't get into the starting lineup over a Casemiro, I think that says enough for me. I think Ugarte is in that Onana camp for me. I just don't think he's very good. I know it's only one game of the season, but I think Agoume walks into this team. I think he strolls into this team. Agoume's 6'2", plays for Seville. I like this player. £26 million, I think, is ridiculous value. Ugarte was what, £52 million. Agoume's 23 years old. You have him in your squad for 5 years. If you could pay this in 2 instalments, or even just pay it in one, it's ridiculous value. If you got him for 26 million and you had him for 5 years, that's just ridiculous value. And I think this is a sort of deal that Brighton do. This is a sort of deal that Brentford would do. This is the sort of deal, that these clubs do. And I get he's not Premier League proven, but Belieber wasn't Premier League proven. Now, a lot of players that you take a punt on are not Premier League proven. So at what point do we go, let's go get these players? Like, we used to go and get these players. We used to go and do these sorts of deals. A lot of the time, it didn't work out. You look at Forlan as a striker. He wasn't awful, but he came in and he was nearly great, and then he left. So Jemba as well. I mean, he wasn't great, but again, he didn't really cost tons and tons of money. So our history is littered with midfielders or players that we buy that don't become great. But then for every Jemba, there's a Cristiano. There's an Evra, there's a Vidic. When we got Evra from Monaco, and then we got Vidic in, they were terrible. They were Premier League proven. They were awful. Dorgu last year, we got him in. He looked okay. I think he did some good stuff. 20 odd years old, from a lesser team, and you can get some really good bargains. And this is what we need to do. This is what I want to see. Neil Crowd, legend of the chat as well. I want to start believing in Agoume. I want to start believing in Agoume stuff unless we hear it from something. Yeah, I mean, this is just news that I've seen out there. This is the breaking news now all over some of bigger channels than mine. Now, if you like the United Stand, if you go through like all these ones, you've got Indiala on X, who are, I think, reasonably respected. They're not necessarily 100%, but lots of people have quoted them as well. So I don't know if there's anything else come out since I've been live. And there's lots of stuff now going through the media about this. And again, I don't disagree with you. We look at Belieber. I was properly set on that. It's purely because of the sources, purely because I think logically, and I'll talk about that again, Agume would be a good deal. This could also mean we try and sell Ugarte. I don't disagree. Ugarte for me is definitely not the one. I don't think Ugarte works. I don't think he's Amorim's choice. I just don't think he works. I think we need Ugarte for cover, but I wouldn't be disappointed if we got rid of Ugarte. I think bigger clubs cut their losses on players who are not great, and I just don't think he's that. I think it was a bad deal all round. Ugarte for me, he's just not the one. Having said that, I think Bailey Marshall stuff all started from foreign sources. Exactly. I mean, Neil, we've got to start somewhere, right? You know, I wouldn't normally come on and just go for random stuff. You know, you hear him like there's been so much stuff out there about a couple of days ago about Harry Kane, and we were gonna be linked to Kane and Wharton's coming. This has literally been the last couple of hours. If you look over the internet, there's tons of stuff. So I sort of wait until there's a couple of people that come out of it. There's a couple of sources that come out of it, that are okay. But then when it's just the general media that it comes out of, and then channels, I mean, I would have been over this sooner, but like I was in a shop, and this stuff sort of always happens. And then logically, I go with what I think makes sense, and I think this completely makes sense to me in terms of you guys. This one I'll give up to the chat. On this one, you guys have been talking about this for such a long time. And then when you look at the profile, you look at the age. I think it makes complete sense to me. You know, you look at the price. I mean, 30 million euros is ridiculous. You know, Rios was one as well, but you know we were all talking about that, and Rios, you know, we could have got him in. Maybe he was slightly older. Maybe that's why we didn't do it. But we definitely can't. We definitely can't miss out on this one. Berger was the deal to do for half price of Ugarte. We would have had Scotty and Ruben. Do you know what, Joe? I agree. With hindsight, even McTominay, you know, we learn things with time. Right? I was always a Ten Hagin, but looking back, like with hindsight, he wasn't, was he? You know, the things that he did, the plays that he brought into the squad, probably sets back a couple of years. So you live and learn, right? You know, and I think you're right. I think there's a reason why people liked McTominay, and good luck to the lad. You know, I think he's proved people wrong, and there are lots of channels at the time that I watched. Maybe they influenced what I was thinking about, but when you look at it now and you actually watch football, which I have been doing a lot again, you know, we've been proved wrong. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just we weren't the club at the time. Some would argue that we're not now, but McTominay would definitely fit into this now. Why did Ruben bring on Ugarte over Kobe? Exactly. I don't know. There's something going on with Kobe. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's not training right. I don't know if he's still carrying an injury. Don't forget he was out for such a long time. I just don't think he fancies him. But there's players in life that we all think are good. Kobe had a good season before last. Was he played too much? Possibly. And maybe he's been burnt on that. You know, maybe Amrin doesn't think he's good enough, or doesn't like him in this team, doesn't like what he brings to this side. I think Mainoo could do with a loan. You know, I don't want to get rid of Mainoo yet, but it's clearly something that he's not doing that Amrin doesn't like. Maybe it's just a profile. Maybe he just doesn't like the player for whatever reason. It could be Amrin's mistake. It could be a mistake, but it could prove like a good deal as well. So we've got to trust in this coach and let him make his mistakes. And in time, maybe Mainoo will be the biggest mistake that we ever make. But I think we have to let Amrin crack on and make these potential mistakes, or he might be proved right. So I think he just doesn't fancy Mainoo. I just think it's simple as that. Ezzy to Spurs looks like a deal done. Spurs have improved. I think that's a really good point. I think Spurs have improved now to the point where they're going to be looking at top four. They've got a great coach, got some good players. They're going to be looking for that top four finish. So Spurs and United 15th, 16th respectively, that's not going to be the same this season. So, you know, I think that you're right. You know, Spurs are competitors, and we need to be looking at what Spurs are doing, and we need to do something. If they not a bad replacement for Maddison is yet. Wonder if he makes his debut at City on Saturday. If they finish everything, we could get a medical tomorrow. And negotiation for Eze to Spurs are underway. 55 million plus 5. But again, though, you know, you say he's cheap, but because we don't go for these players, we don't know prices, do we? You know, we there's a tax on us. Like there is a tax on us, and I think that's fact. So yeah. So if you have just joined, I'll quickly run through it again, and then I'll go, guys. Agume, breaking news, Agume to United, been reported lots and lots now. Obviously, we're going to wait for the kind of main ones to come out on it. It's come from Indiala on X. You know, they've been quote tweeted by Fabrizio. They've been quote tweeted by Ornstein. You know, they've been, they're here, there and everywhere. Lots of other bigger channels as well have started reporting on this as well. Other outlets have started to report on there. So I do think they're starting to have legs on Agume. And I think that we need to watch this one. But the breaking news is on that one. Goalkeeper-wise, it's been Costa floating around. Martinez, for me, in goal, I think maybe the one that's kind of possibly a loan. I think that's the one that's going to start to fizzle out. Hi sir, I hope you're doing really, really well. Lemens for me, I think Lemens for me, or Costa. I think if Costa's available for 30 million euros, 26 million quid or so, I think it's definitely worth doing. So that's where we're at with that. As a very close to Kenya in Burma level, so I'm baffled why we couldn't get Wharton for 60. I think Crystal Palace know his worth. Players like Wharton and Declan Rice are so very difficult to get right now. Even though they don't score you a ton of goals, the contribution they make to the team, I think because Eze is great, right? But it's easier, in my opinion, that's just my opinion, it's always going to be a winger. It's always going to be a creative player. So, for every Zaha, you've got an Eze. You've got these wingers, I think, are not a dime a dozen, but everybody wants to be a winger or a striker. So I think there's more choice of wingers and strikers. Now, Eze will leave and there'll be the next one that comes through. But people like Belieber, Wharton, Declan Rice, these centre midfielders who are that kind of defensive, combative, box to box, because there's not a lot of them, it's basically like supply, right? Is that when you've not got a lot of these midfielder types, centre midfielders, they cost money because you need them, and to have a world-class centre midfielder, people don't want to be that. So they're few and far. So that's basically why Crystal Palace will demand 70 million for Wharton, because ultimately people will pay it, and that's probably like his value. Here we go. Yeah, we aren't. Well, they aren't selling then, exactly. You're right. Palace wouldn't not sell Wharton after losing. Exactly. So that's where we are. So I'll jump on if I hear anything else. But that's where we are. Agume, centre midfield. Let's see what happens there. We do need to build up. We definitely do need to build up for Anfield. I think Costa's been mentioned as well, and Lemens. So this could all be spin, by the way. I think there is some legs in it. Just what I question now, what is the appetite to get these deals done? I have seen 3 minutes of Agume. I want the guy looks like a brick wall. Exactly, 6'2". I think we need to get this deal done. So if anything else does break, guys, I will jump back on again. Thank you for being in the chat. It does really mean so much to me. Have a good rest of your day. Have a good rest of your evening, whatever you're doing. And if anything does break, I will be back on as always. So thank you, guys, and I'll catch you later. Have a good one, and take care. Look after each other, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care.